Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Executive Podcast, a place where executives share their stories, life lessons, and advice on how to make it at the highest level. Today, I'm excited that we've got Yosh Eisbart here with us. Yosh was the co-founder and CEO of Nimble, which he and his business partner grew a B2B enterprise software business to $50 million in revenue and over 300 people before they exited. Yosh, great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm super excited for the conversation.
So Yosh, you built an incredibly successful company. What are you doing back at the startup line? Why are you crazy to start this over and be a second-time founder?
I think that just from a DNA perspective, my whole juice and excitement is really around creation and around the startup process. And so, my business partner, who I, in essence, have been married to since 2005, Michael Pytel, and so much of my professional career has been fortunately linked to Mike's brilliance and experience. We had a great run with our last company. We started Nimble, as you had mentioned, an enterprise B2B software and services company based here in Colorado. And that was a bit different than Fulfilled, our latest startup. Nimble was a self-funded business, and it was a lot easier because it was primarily services and we were selling hours as opposed to software. But we grew that and had a great run and a lot of learning and some success. And to answer your question succinctly, I think that Mike and I felt that we had more go and more fuel in the tank to try to do it again. And one of the things that we didn't do at Nimble was, while we built custom software and integrated hardware for our customers, we never commoditized that IP. We never brought that intellectual property to market. And so with Fulfilled, we have the opportunity now to build from scratch the software we always dreamed of, and that's what we're doing now. We love it. It's awesome.
That's awesome. And so you obviously come into your second startup with a lot more experience. What are really the key lessons you took from Nimble that you're trying to take into Fulfilled now?
I mean, there's so many. I would say that first off, for those that could see the video, like my name, Eisbart says, the literal translation from German is icicle beard or ice beard. And, my pepper beard or my gray beard is a reflection of ain't wisdom, but more age. And so, being so much older now, and having then the experience of the 10 plus years at Nimble, there were so many powerful lessons that were learned that we're really now trying to put into effect with Fulfilled. So I think some key things that are important is that, when you're starting a business, two founders, which I highly, highly recommend. Maybe one learning experience is finding a right co-founder, which is really hard and presents itself with a whole host of other challenges because a co-founder experience, quite frankly, in some cases can be more challenging than a marriage, and can get into some of that. But finding a co-founder, someone who complements you really well and in the best of relationships provides you with the peer support when you're down or vice versa, provides you with a real mirror of helping you see your blind spots or blind spots of the company that, we as, strong, pig-headed founders feel like we know everything. All that needs to be within a constructive and radically candid set of interactions. So that's super imperative. So having a co-founder for me, I think is one of the keys that we had for success back at Nimble. The other thing is I feel, and you're also talking to a sales guy, is that we were just having this discussion among the three founders at Fulfilled in our weekly ELT. How do you approach your business? Are you a product-led business or are you a sales-driven business? And as objective as I can be, I feel that it is crucial to be a sales-driven business. It's important to have phenomenal product or services and constantly focus on, as my old boss used to say, delivery excellence. And if you don't got sales, you don't got nothing. And so for me, and ethics and presenting to the customer what you're capable of doing and always being forthright is a pillar. And always focusing on revenue generation, because that fuels everything. That it fuels growth, which enables you to hire more people and being able to continue to focus on key aspects of your business. Those I could go on forever, but I think that those are some of the two most important nuggets that we learned and we're trying to re-implement with Fulfilled.
And so when you're trying to be a sales a sales focused organization, how do you do that, especially in the beginning when you almost are maybe a little bit embarrassed by the product, right? If you got it out early enough, how do you really put yourself out there and get feedback and really push to get revenue in the door as quickly as possible?
Matt, you don't know me that well. I don't get embarrassed that easily. I have a tremendous, strong sense of self. No, your point is well taken. I think that, as you're building a startup, getting your first set of customers is imperative because you need those references in order to be able to get other customers. And so, I think working with friendlies, quite frankly, is a great way to be able to get your foot in the door. Working with folks that you've had relationships with in the past who, quite frankly, will be more forgiving. Understanding where you are in the life cycle. As an example, right now with Fulfilled, we are working on deploying the product, quite frankly, in some cases, as a co-innovation. So we've completed our MVP as of December of that last year, so a month-ish ago. And some of the customers that we're talking to as we're passing contracts back and forth, they're fully aware of where we are in our product. And some of them are comfortable with where we are in regards to feature and function. And others are excited about co-innovation and bringing some functionality that maybe off-the-shelf products don't yet have. And because we are a startup and we're nimble, we've got the ability to bring some of that feature and function forward as maybe some of our competitors don't, because our competitors are companies of 5,000 people, and getting a product moved quicker along the release schedule requires an act of Congress. So
right.
I think those are the two things that we're doing. There is a balance around selling the vision and generating excitement around what's possible and what the roadmap looks like in 24 months, and tempering that with where we are now. The customers that we're working with right now, they understand that balance. They're excited, and some have quite frankly said, "Hey, Yosh, love what y'all are envisioning. Come back to us when you got 3 customers." And those are in the sales force right now with a re-engage date of 6 months.
Right. So you have to find the customers that are willing to engage now and be part of the process, where others are just, it's too early. You have to come back to them.
Bingo. Yeah, exactly.
The co-founder, you talked about how important the co-founder is. I would love to double click on that, and because, a great marriage, doesn't come without its struggles, right? What are the key things that you found you had to get aligned with your co-founder?
I think there's multiple there. As strong co-founders, and it may not always be the case, because sometimes in a co-founder relationship, you have someone that is the one that brings along someone else, as opposed to a 50-50 relationship, which is the way it's been with me and Mike since 2005. So I think there's a couple of things. One is there needs to be tremendous self-awareness. And not only is that important in the professional world, it's important in the personal world in terms of trying to cultivate the most successful type of relationships. But having self-awareness as a co-founder, understanding what your strengths are, understanding what your business partner's strengths are, knowing when to lean in, knowing when to step back, knowing when to take the lead, knowing when to take the back seat, knowing when to call out your business partner or have them call you out when you're wrong. And from a self-awareness perspective, being clear-headed enough and not pig-headed enough that you're willing to accept the feedback, and hopefully, and it's not always the case, especially when not only is tension high, but the stakes are high, having your opinion being or your perspective being told it's not accurate. And so self-awareness is imperative on both sides. Being constructive in communication is fundamental. And that hasn't always been the case. I mean, Mike and I, some of the most intense interactions in my life have been, Mike and I nose to nose, and not necessarily saying the nicest things to each other. And then, fast forward, a week later, and throwing back a beer and talking how we were both idiots.
Right.
So that's important. I mean, I think, quite frankly, it's probably less about the business side. It's more around the EQ side. I think that's where, I don't know what the statistic is, but 80% of businesses fail because of co-founder disharmony. So being able to find somebody that you can work with well, and also seeing yourself on how you're behaving and how to be better, that's fundamental to, co-founder flow.
Well, one of the amazing traits of entrepreneurs is you have to be so set, right, with your vision and be so convicted. So when you have two co-founders who maybe disagree, how would you resolve that? Would you lean on your board and go to them and say, who's right here? Because we both think we're right. How would you resolve that?
I mean, there's different tools that I've utilized, that we've utilized over the past. One has been, we never had a board at Nimble. We had an advisory board, but it was more folks that were really experienced providing input, but they had no fiduciary, they had no real oversight, quite frankly. I mean, they were a sounding board, But I think some things that we have had some great opportunity for looking at each other, looking at ourselves, and working through challenge has been a business coach. Everyone's a business coach, so it's really important to find the right business coach, and like a therapist, somebody who you really you both jive with, and that therapist is truly objective and someone who is respected by both parties. That's one way. I think that's probably the one that we've exercised the most to have some success in terms of struggling through or working through some struggle.
And Yosh, you said you never had a board. Does that mean you never raised capital for Nimble?
So we never raised money for Nimble, and that was, again, much easier because it was a services company, and Mike and I were billable all the way through year number 3, and we started just the two of us as consultants. And so, we were selling our time, and every dollar, a good percentage of that went into the kitty, enabling us to be able to build dry powder, to be able to hire folks and to market and blah, blah, blah. With Fulfilled, we are a global CISO compliant, enterprise grade, B2B warehouse management orchestration platform, leveraging both hardware and software. And so outside of that being a mouthful, it requires a ton of capital to build that level of product. So we've raised $4 million in venture capital, and our team now is 13, soon to be 14 folks. Wow. And so it's a lot different because you need to invest in the product and the people before you start generating revenue.
Totally different type of business. Would love to talk about Fulfilled. Clearly, when you were at Nimble, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, you saw something that created Fulfilled, right? And it was something that it was clearly a product came out of it, and it didn't seem like that would fit under the service company, Nimble. What was that, and how did this come about?
Yeah. So, when we were helping customers, Nestle, Cintas, Pepsi, Hallmark, Gates, the San Francisco 49ers, we were brought in as consultants to help them innovate and propel their business in whatever their respective objectives were. And we worked within primarily an enterprise software product called SAP. SAP is the largest enterprise software product in the world. And while we were implementing SAP, often for manufacturers or wholesale distributors or high tech or whatever, we were asked, can you develop some complementary software that could easily integrate with SAP and enhance it above and beyond, existing feature and function? And then sometimes we were asked, hey, not only can you do that custom dev, but could you also integrate IoT hardware that could extend feature and function of core SAP? And we did it. And, being a sales-driven organization, always focused on revenue, any real type of pause or kind of, quite frankly, investment in future opportunity, we just didn't afford ourselves with that because we were so focused on growth. If you spend 6 months on building something and then taking it to market, that is while that's a long-term play, that doesn't always reap the rewards, and it requires vision and foresight and investment, etc. So we never did it. We would build it for the customer and we move on. Well, as we ended Nimble, And this was pre-COVID. So and when I mean that, the supply chain that everybody's talking about, and it's on the front page of the New York Times, and literally an article a week ago in regards to challenges around warehousing and supply chain logistics, et cetera. This idea was born pre supply chain mad disruption of everyone sitting at home and ordering Snuggies on Amazon.
Right.
So we just felt like, based upon our experience within the enterprise software world and implementing both SAP's solution, which is called Extended Warehouse Management, or EWM, as well as integrating core SAP with the competitors such as Manhattan, Blue Yonder, HighJump, etc., we just felt like there is so much opportunity here in building a better warehouse management product, that this is a great way for us to spend time and energy. Now we bring in Michael and his beautiful mind and the whole concept of location and digital twin, meaning creating a digitization of the warehouse, a physical space, and creating that digitized as what they call a digital twin. The power of digital twin, which we had experienced again with Nimble, and adding the digitization of physical space along with core warehouse feature and function, and some additional differentiations such as deep learning, artificial intelligence, and hardware and software as a product. We just felt like this was a phenomenal opportunity that it's not in the market. And part of the reason is it's a big lift. I mean, this is a major disruptor, which, knock on wood, hopefully we're successful, but we're not just competing against the heritage, well-established ERP companies like Oracle, SAP, and Microsoft. And we're not just competing against the IBMs and the Deloittes and Accentures, where they build this like Nimble did as a custom one-off. We're also competing against the hardware providers that are creating the scanners, such as the Honeywells and the Panasonics, etc. So we're right in this bullseye of major Big Four consultant, major ERP and OEM, and no one's doing this right now. These are more kind of one-offs. And so this is a really exciting opportunity, so exciting that among our incredible investors, one of our investors is a fellow by the name of Jeff Wilkie. And Jeff was the number 2 over at Amazon, reporting directly into Bezos from 1999 through 2021, responsible for their entire global consumer business, meaning that anything on Amazon Marketplace, Amazon Prime, or Whole Foods, he was the head of the food chain there. So he believes so strongly in what we're doing that he put his own money in. Wow. So super exciting. So this.
How do you find Jeff, right? I mean, how do you find someone like that with his knowledge? How do you get to someone like that?
So one of the things, you answered earlier, it's like kind of what are some keys to success in the startup? And I would say that hustle, which, is trite. And everybody says it. But the constant hustle and the constant networking, you never know where concentric circles and what type of touch point you can get. And quite frankly, it's like, what is luck? It's like, putting yourself in the path of opportunity and seizing it. And so we were able to get in or on Jeff's radar because our lead investor, which happened through another lucky connection, which happened because of a LinkedIn post that we put on early. So the chain is as follows. We were highlighting what we were doing as a startup, which was super basic and very early, pre-revenue, pre-investment. Michael and I had invested some of our own money, but this was before any venture capital was raised. We highlighted something on LinkedIn. We were just hustling. And the largest prop tech venture capital firm in Europe, one of our investors called Pi Labs, they reached out and said, hey, we work within the warehousing space. We'd like to have a conversation. Absolutely, let's do it. So we spoke to them. They had conviction. They wanted to invest. And so they then started to reach out to other venture capital groups, primarily in the United States, that they wanted to have a relationship with. And they happened to then reach out to 10110, didn't really know them before. And 10110 is one of our lead investors out of LA. And we had some great conversations with them. They had conviction and they said, we're in. And then they said, someone that is part of our radar, but we don't really have the strongest relationship with is a fellow by the name of Jeff Wilkie. Would you be willing to take the call? We're like, hell yeah. So after 2 29-minute conversations with Jeff, he's like, how much is left on the cap table? I'm in. So it's all those pings, again, that you never know where it's going to happen, constantly being out there, throwing it out there, whether you've got all the information or not. And obviously, providing some type of valuable content. It doesn't need to be Plato, but, it's got to be something. You never know how you're going to get to a Jeff Wilkie.
And as the CEO, that's part of your job, right? It's so many different roles, especially as a founder CEO, but sometimes networking is not emphasized enough. How would you advise other, early founders and CEOs? How much of their time should be, trying to connect dots or get themselves out there when you really don't know when that's going to pay off, right? A lot of times when you're meeting people, you have no idea who they know. And so you're kind of taking constant risks with your time.
I think a good percentage of your time, and if I were to quantify it, I'm spending probably 40% of my time out there connecting with people on LinkedIn, sometimes getting a response, most often not. Yeah. I'm part of this amazing business network called YPO, where I spend a good amount of energy there focused on a board that I'm involved in around entrepreneurship and innovation. But through that board membership or board volunteering, I'm meeting phenomenal people that are not only benefiting me personally and my learning and networking and etc., but it's directly impacting Fulfilled. So I am a huge fan of constant networking and at all stages. You want to be judicious too, and you don't want to just take every single meeting, although quite frankly, I probably do. But I think that it's imperative for personal growth, for business growth, for never knowing where the universe is going to unfold, to really spend quality time making meaningful connections, because, again, you never know where it will lead.
Right. And as we talk about, being a CEO, that's a huge piece of it. What would you say are, the other things that really fall under the CEO title, especially early on? And how does that change as you grow? Obviously, starting Nimble, 10 plus years ago, CEO is very different probably than when at the end of the 10 years when you got acquired. What are the things that you're really focused on early that in 5-7 years will be very different?
Well, I'm a great question. I'm a sales and marketing focused business guy. And while I do come from a an engineering background, and I come from a development background as a programmer years ago, I am of the perspective that a CEO's role, which quite frankly is kind of how Mike and I have divided it. I mean, my title is CEO, Mike is CTO, and we're 50-50. I mean, and all important business decisions are discussed around the table between me, Mike, and Rick, our third co-founder. When it was just me and Mike back in our past company, my title was CEO, whereas my responsibilities, again, as you alluded to, when it's early on, you wear a ton of different hats. As the company scales, and if you're doing it right, you're delegating and focusing on the different things and putting better people at different positions to not only complement but do better than what you could do. But as a company matures, I think in my mind, which is what we've done rinse and repeat now numerous times, is that the CEO is the one that's focused on sales, that's focused on marketing, that's focused on external facing in terms of the market. If it's venture capital, they're the ones that are involved, at least in the early discussions and the sales of the vision of the company for investment. I think that probably, if you want a company that is able to scale, in my mind, and obviously I'm a bit biased, I think sales focused is better. Again, it doesn't mean that their product and engineering and innovation isn't tremendously important. But I go back to, one of the two primary pillars of, what's important in a startup. And I think it's sales focused. And you don't got sales, you don't got nothing.
Yeah, back to the two pillars. And the one pillar was definitely the sales focus. Remind us the other pillar that you mentioned.
The other one I think that I was talking about is around co-founder and finding the right co-founder to help complement so that you can take care of everything outside of the sales and the product and such.
So, from being in Nimble for so long, a lot of things went well, but I'm sure there were mistakes that you made that you just go into fulfilled and say, gosh, let's not make that mistake again. Are there any of those that come top of mind?
Again, how much time you got? We got a couple hours.
we got time for a couple.
I think lessons learned on mistakes that we made. I think taking on too much responsibility, and I see many founders do this, and not delegating is a not only is it a bottleneck, but it's also a culture killer. And if you need to be involved in every single decision as a founder, something's messed up. Or as a CEO or as a C-suite. I mean, your company's too small. Let me rephrase that. It depends upon how big your company is and where you are in your life cycle. Right. If you're a company of 300, or if you're a company of 100, and you got to review every single SOW, I have buddies who are in organizations where before any type of SOW goes out to a customer, the CEO, and it's a company north of 300, has got to review it. That's messed up. So lesson around putting in proper middle management, empowering them, and delegating is imperative for scale. The other thing that's tremendously important is accountability. And accountability needs to be held at all levels. And so it's always easy to manage rock stars. It's easy to manage that co-worker, employee that always follows up with an email. There's no missed deadlines. follow throughs, blah, 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 blah. That's easy. That's not effective management. And then and the accountability is easy because there's accountability there. There's accountability already there at all levels. The tough part is having to hold people accountable in a constructive way when they're not delivering.
Yeah.
And I've seen it where in past lives we've had leaders, in quotes, who've been able to manage certain business units because they had leaders underneath them that were running the whole damn thing. But when they had a subordinate that wasn't meeting expectation, and they as a leader had a difficult time holding that subordinate accountable and being able to grow, groom, nurture, support, get out of the way, step in, then that whole part of the business showed fracture and wasn't meeting expectation. So accountability and holding people accountable and having tough conversations in a constructive way, quite frankly, I don't think is in everybody's toolbox.
Yeah. And were you creating systems in place then to make sure you were routinely keeping people accountable? Did you start creating systems around that? As the organization grows to 300, that's hard.
No, I mean, no, you should, and I didn't do it. I mean, we didn't do it. At the beginning, again, it's a team of 20, and everyone's around the table, and, after work, everyone goes to the brewery, and you're able to throw back beers and talk about stuff. And these are, quite frankly, folks that are, fellow soldiers in the fight, and they're close enough to kind of the vision, or they're not close enough to it, they're part of the vision, that's easy. As the company scales and you start getting more people, that's all the more important to have those systems involved. But, running a company for the first time and not having that experience or the, not only the experience, but the insight on how to do it better, you maintain that type of command and control as it scales, which then doesn't allow you to delegate and elevate, which then creates a bottleneck, and you don't have those systems. So just by not having those systems and seeing the fission and fracture, that's where we started to put in systems. And quite frankly, it were people that were better ops at it than I was to say, hey, Yosh, you schmuck, we got to do this, this, and this. And because you had that trust between me and Chris is able to say that and not feel threatened, by calling me a schmuck. So,
and it sounds like you really learned how to go from, the visionary, the salesperson, and lead to being a manager, right? As the company grew, you had to learn that skill set of not just being a leader, but also being a manager.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, some people have that as part of their DNA from day one. I mean, I'd like to think that, as objectively speaking, is my EQ has sure as hell grown. And I think I've got, some EQ, but wasn't the managerial experience I had was more on a command and control. And because, especially since you're a founder, you're in a position of authority, people are going to defer to you, and quite frankly may not necessarily want to contradict for whatever reason, job security, blah, blah, blah. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, over the years and having the growth and the experience to see what was working and wasn't working, and then again, having the right teammates around you to hold a mirror to you and to teach you so you can learn, so you can teach others, and, continue the circle. That requires, time. Yeah.
Well, as we, start to wrap up, what's the vision for Fulfilled? Where are we going to see Fulfilled in the next 5 years?
We want to take over the world.
Of course.
I think we were this morning, we're leveraging, and this is new to us. This is something that we didn't do in the past company, but we are implementing a management construct called EOS. And there's many out there. And a bunch of my buddies, Nick McCall, who I had implemented in his past company, is helping us as a facilitator. And EOS provides a construct around how do you manage your business, what's real tactical from a yearly, 3-year, 10-year vision, what type of rocks are you focused on by quarter, how are you holding yourself and your team accountable, et cetera, et cetera. So this morning, we were reviewing our 3-year set of priorities. And so it's totally fresh in mind. I'm glad you asked. So in 3 years, we are focused on generating meaningful revenue and knock on wood, having annual recurring revenue of north of 30 million in the 3-year time frame, and that's ambitious. We want to have leadership harmony and making sure that we don't go back to the knucklehead nose-to-nose conversations, but being able to call each other out. And quite frankly, I think having Rick as a third founder naturally is helping with that, because it's not just one-on-one, but it's 3 separate strong voices. So that's another one that's super cool. We want to build an organization, and our EOS priorities, visions, goals, etc., is full on shared with our entire team. So as we were starting the company, our last company, fully transparent. I mean, we were more secretive of kind of what our ambitions were. It wasn't necessarily for the first several years or even later that one of our objectives was to scale to sell. This one, we full on, every employee, every co-worker is aware, and they have equity in the company too. So we're sharing
aligned.
all of the opportunity across everybody, that we want to scale this and we want to grow it and build a great company, and we want to sell it or go IPO. And then I think the last one would be we want to create a company where we're all proud to be a part of it. And so one of the tactical rocks for the 3 years is creating a company that's consistently recognized as the best place to work. So it's not just at the expense of sales, or revenue generation, burning out our folks, but truly we want to be a fun place to work where people are, they could choose. There are a lot of choices out there now, especially in the tough tech market. We want people to be excited to be a part of Fulfilled.
Love that. So quick fire questions. Was there a book for you that was most meaningful in your career, whether it was professional or personal, that you'd recognize?
Atlas Shrugged is
it's a good one.
A book by Ayn Rand for me, where her whole approach around objectivism and creating that meaningful work and passion around what you do, that's resonated. I think as I've gotten more rings around the tree, it's kind of tempered a bit, not in terms of the passion, but maybe the ideology. But that was a book that truly resonated with me. I think I'd probably pick that one.
That's a great one. What about a quote? I'm a big quote person. Do you have a favorite quote?
Funny you should ask.
Is it right behind you?
Hold on 1 second. Take 1 second. So there is a poem by Rudyard Kipling.
A poem's even better.
Called If. And this is a poem, and I'll read it, that has been a part of my life from third grade. And that it's so important and I'm going through a midlife crisis as I'm turning 50. I'm seriously contemplating getting a tattoo. I know it sounds freaking ridiculous and stupid, being such an old fart.
Just depends where.
Good point. It'll be small, but let me read it if I can.
Yeah,
please.
please.
A second. So it's If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after you're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can walk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foe nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
What a great poem.
I love it.
I can't believe you've had that since third grade. I think my third grade poem was probably a Linkin Park lyric. That's incredible.
Thank you for indulging me. Sorry.
No, that is awesome. Well, to fully wrap us up, do you have any parting advice that you would share for other CEOs and founders that you wanna end with?
I think just with the poem, in terms of remaining humble and kind, surrounding yourself with those that make you better, constantly hustling and networking, and paying it forward. I think those are some great characteristics that if we could strive to, it helps us become better, and it helps kind of the ecosystem be better. And I want to thank you, man, for indulging me and having me on The Executive. This has been a ton of fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yosh, appreciate you so much.